Hello, esteemed gentlemen. Silence is not empty, it's full of answers. Most men don't realize this, but research shows that women pick up on subtle social cues almost twice as fast as men do. That means before you've even said a word, she's already decoding your energy, your body language, and yes, even the fact that you don't play by the usual social script. And here's the twist. When a woman realizes you're not chasing, performing, or trying to impress like everyone else, she starts acting weird. Not funny weird, but psychological glitch weird. You'll notice behaviors that make no sense on the surface, like oversharing secrets in the first 5 minutes or competing with women who don't even exist. It's almost like your presence scrambles her internal settings. Think of it this way. Most guys are like apps she's used to navigating. You're like a brand new operating system. No manual, no instructions, and no guarantee her old tricks will work. And trust me, that's when things get fascinating and a little funny. Because half the time, even she doesn't realize how bizarre her reactions look. Today, we're diving into the 12 weird things women do when they know you're a Sigma, a high-value man. Number 1. They chase glimpses of your approval. When a woman realizes you're a Sigma, your approval suddenly carries a weight she can't quite explain. It's not because you hand it out often, and that's exactly why it matters so much. A simple nod, a rare smile, or a single compliment from you lingers in her mind far longer than the endless praise she gets from everyone else. She might act casual about it in the moment, pretending she doesn't care, but the truth is that 1 second of acknowledgement from you replays in her head for days, sometimes even weeks. It's a strange effect you have without even trying. You don't flatter to get something, you don't dish out validation like candy, and you don't bend yourself into a performance to keep someone's interest. Instead, you remain consistent in who you are, and because your approval isn't on tap, it feels rare, like something that has to be earned. Women pick up on this scarcity, and it changes how they behave around you. They'll try harder to impress without admitting it. They'll suddenly bring up achievements in conversation, subtly hoping you'll acknowledge them. They'll laugh a little too loud at your jokes, even if you weren't trying to be funny, because they're chasing that quick spark of recognition. Some even go as far as changing their behavior entirely, just to get that tiny reaction. A shift in your eyes, the curl of your mouth, anything that tells them they crossed the invisible line into your approval zone. What makes it even weirder is how disproportionate it feels. To you, it was just a slight smile, but to her, it was a victory, almost a personal reward. That's because deep down, she knows you don't give your energy away cheaply. In a world full of men trying desperately to be liked, your indifference makes every ounce of acknowledgement feel like gold. And here's the ironic part. The more she chases it, the more you naturally hold back, not out of cruelty, but because that's just your nature. You don't validate to manipulate. You validate when it's genuine, and that honesty is exactly why it strikes her so hard. To a Sigma, approval isn't a game, but to her, it becomes one of the most valuable currencies she can earn. That's why women will secretly chase even the smallest glimpses of it. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you're not playing at all. And that's what makes your approval so addictive. Number 2, they get nervous in the mundane. There's something unusual that happens when a woman spends time with a Sigma in ordinary settings. The simple, everyday moments, grabbing a coffee, walking down the street, sitting in silence, become charged in ways she can't fully explain. With most men, these things feel routine, almost predictable. But with you, the smallest detail feels magnified. She starts overthinking everything. How she holds her cup, how she walks beside you, even how long she pauses before speaking. It's not that you're intimidating her with loud energy or trying to dominate the moment, it's the opposite. Your calmness turns the mundane into something that feels strangely heightened. What unsettles her is that you don't fill every second with noise. Most guys rush to impress, to crack jokes, to fill silence with chatter. You don't. That quiet, collected presence makes her nervous because it leaves space for meaning. She can't distract herself with fluff when she's around you, and that makes every small action feel significant. The silence stretches, and instead of feeling empty, it feels heavy, like it's saying more than words could. And she knows you're noticing things most men would miss. That nervous energy often shows in subtle ways. She fidgets with her hair. She checks her phone but doesn't really read anything. She laughs at nothing just to ease the tension she feels. Sometimes she even rambles, filling the air with words because your stillness makes her realize how loud and restless she really is. It's not fear. It's the awareness that you see through the surface, even in the simplest settings. Ironically, she may not feel this way on a real date. A formal dinner or a night out comes with scripts she understands. Dress up, order food, flirt, smile, and follow the rhythm. But a quiet walk, a coffee shop? There are no scripts there, no obvious moves to fall back on. That's when the real version of her shows up, and that's when she feels exposed. The mundane with you doesn't feel ordinary, it feels amplified. She knows you're not just passing time. Every moment with you feels like it carries weight, and that's why she gets nervous. Because deep down, she knows those simple, unguarded spaces are where truth slips out, and you're the kind of man who won't miss it. Number 3. They try to recruit you into their chaos. When a woman realizes you're Sigma, one of the strangest things she'll sometimes do is try to drag you into her chaos. Not because she genuinely needs you to fix her problems, but because she's curious, almost obsessed, with whether your composure is as unshakable as it looks. She'll tell you about the friend who betrayed her, the co-worker who disrespected her, the family member who thrives on conflict. She'll invite you into the whirlwind of her world, laying out every messy detail, not to unload the burden, but to see if you'll take the bait. Most men jump right in. They offer solutions, pick sides, or even take on the role of savior. That's what she's used to. Men rushing to prove themselves by getting involved in her drama. But with you, the response is different. You listen, you nod, but you don't get tangled. You don't ride the emotional roller coaster with her, and that unsettles her more than the problem itself. That detachment is powerful because it does two things at once. First, it shows her that her chaos doesn't control you. She could light the room on fire with her problems, and you'd still stand there, calm, unburned, almost untouchable. Second, it forces her to confront the fact that not every storm needs an audience. That realization both frustrates her and fascinates her. On one hand, she may push harder, turning up the volume of her drama just to see if you'll finally flinch. On the other, she can't help but respect the way you refuse to be consumed. The irony is that she isn't always trying to solve the problem. Sometimes she's testing if you're real. If your self-control, your calm, your ability to stay out of meaningless battles is genuine, or just a facade waiting to crack. She doesn't consciously think of it as a test, but every time you don't take the bait, her respect for you grows. And here's the part she won't admit. Part of her secretly wants your steadiness to rub off on her. Even though she pretends to want you involved, what she actually wants is proof that there's a different way to handle chaos, without being consumed by it. That's why, no matter how wild her storm gets, she'll keep trying to recruit you into it. Not because she wants you tangled, but because deep down, she wants to see if your peace is real, and if it's possible for her too. Number 4. They copy your preferences without acknowledging it. One of the strangest things women do around a Sigma is quietly absorbing his preferences and then passing them off as their own. It doesn't happen immediately, and it's rarely obvious. You might mention in passing that you've been into a certain band, or that you've switched up your morning routine, or you drop a phrase that's just part of your vocabulary. At the time, it feels like nothing. But weeks later, you notice she's suddenly quoting those same lyrics, rearranging her schedule in a way that mirrors yours, or casually throwing your words into her conversations like they've always been hers. And when you catch it, she won't acknowledge the influence. To her, it's not mimicry. It's just who she is. The reason this happens isn't always about attraction in the obvious sense. It's about energy. A Sigma doesn't flood people with his personality, but his preferences carry a certain quiet gravity. Because you're not seeking approval, the things you like feel less like trends and more like truths. That difference makes them stick. When you say you prefer early mornings over late nights or vinyl records over Spotify, it doesn't come across as performance. It feels grounded, authentic, and authenticity is magnetic. So when she adopts your preferences, she's not just copying for the sake of copying. She's aligning herself with what you represent. In her mind, she's not borrowing from you. She's elevating herself by orbiting your world. What makes it weird is the way she'll guard the illusion of originality. If you point it out, "Didn't I mention that weeks ago?" she'll often brush it off with a laugh or act like it's pure coincidence. Deep down, she knows it traces back to you. But admitting that would mean acknowledging your influence, and that feels too vulnerable. It's subtle, but you'll catch it in patterns. Suddenly, she's ordering the same type of coffee you drink. Suddenly, she's quoting authors you mentioned once in conversation. Suddenly, her Instagram captions echo your phrasing. And it's not about flattery. It's about blending into your rhythm without asking permission. What makes this behavior so fascinating is that it's almost subconscious. She doesn't wake up planning to copy you. Your preferences simply plant seeds in her mind, and over time they bloom as if they were hers. It's one of those quiet tells that she's not just listening to you, she's absorbing you. And in the Sigma's world, that silent adoption speaks louder than any confession she could ever make. Number 5. They project fantasies onto you. When a woman encounters a Sigma, something unusual happens. She stops seeing the man in front of her and starts seeing the man in her mind. Instead of taking you at face value, she paints over you with her own fantasies, almost like using you as a blank canvas for the story she wants to tell herself. Suddenly you're the type of guy who loves deeply but doesn't show it, or the type of man who's secretly dangerous but gentle with the right woman. None of this is based on your words or actions. It's her imagination running wild. The reason it happens is because Sigma men don't explain themselves. You're not out here justifying every choice, oversharing personal history, or handing out disclaimers. That silence, that space you leave unfilled, becomes fertile ground for projection. And women, especially the ones intrigued by you, can't resist filling that space with their own interpretations. To them, your mystery isn't just curiosity, it's an invitation. This projection can be flattering at times, but it's also strange. You'll hear her talk about you as if she knows you better than you know yourself. She'll finish your sentences in her head, assign motives to your silence, and even defend your character in front of others based on things you never said or did. It's not about who you are, it's about who she needs you to be in her story. And the weirder part is, sometimes she'll even believe her own version so strongly that she forgets it's not reality. This is why women around Sigmas often act like they've discovered some hidden side of you that no one else knows. They'll say things like, "I can tell you're the kind of man who," or "I know deep down you," when in truth they're just describing the fantasy they've built on top of you. It's not deception, it's instinct. She senses the gaps in your expression, and instead of leaving them blank, she fills them in with her own ideal. The irony is that while she's busy projecting, she might miss the real you entirely. But that's the price of mystery. When you refuse to hand out a clear script, people write their own, and women especially will often turn a Sigma into the protagonist of a love story that exists only in their minds. It's weird, it's fascinating, and it's one of the clearest signs you've stepped into the space of being more symbol than man. Number 6, they pick fights to measure your calm. One of the strangest reactions women have to a Sigma is starting fights that don't really need to happen. It's not always about anger, disagreement, or even genuine frustration. More often it's about testing the strength of your composure. They want to know if that calm exterior is just a front, or if it holds steady when the heat turns up. So, out of nowhere, they'll pick at small details, exaggerate something you said, or create a conflict where there really isn't one. The trigger can be something as harmless as you not texting back right away, or you giving a short answer when they expected more. Suddenly, there's tension. Not because they're truly upset, but because they're pushing buttons to see what happens. In their minds, calmness is attractive, but only if it's real. Anyone can play cool when everything is smooth. The real test comes when the atmosphere shifts, when words sting, or when emotions flare. That's when they want to see if your balance tips. The weird part is, they often know the fight is unnecessary while they're starting it. A part of them is self-aware enough to realize, I'm creating drama right now. But the curiosity is stronger than the guilt. They want to look into the storm of their own making and check if you flinch, if you raise your voice, if you try to win the argument, or if you stay grounded no matter what's thrown at you. And when you don't react the way most men would, when you don't get dragged into shouting matches, when you don't bite back with defensive energy, it does something unexpected. It frustrates them, yes, but it also deepens their respect. The fact that you refuse to be pulled into emotional quicksand proves that your calm isn't just surface level. It's part of who you are. This is why the fights usually fizzle out as quickly as they begin. The moment she realizes she can't rattle you, her tone shifts, the edge softens, and the storm loses power. In a way, it's less about conflict and more about reassurance. She wants to confirm that you're unshaken even when tested. Because for a Sigma, calmness isn't performance, it's identity. And once she sees that for herself, the fight doesn't feel worth continuing. It becomes just another strange little ritual that proves you're different from every other man she's dealt with. Number 7. They overcompensate around other men. When a woman realizes you're Sigma, one of the strangest behaviors she may slip into is overcompensating around other men when you're present. It's not genuine attraction to them, and it's not even about impressing anyone else in the room. It's about you. More specifically, it's about testing whether your calm, detached demeanor has limits. She'll laugh a little louder than usual at another guy's joke, lean in closer during conversation, or act overly friendly in ways that feel just slightly exaggerated. On the surface, it looks like she's flirting with them, but beneath it, she's really watching you. She's not hoping you'll start a fight or make a scene. That's not what this test is about. What she's measuring is whether you'll reveal a flash of jealousy, even subtly. Maybe you clench your jaw, glance too long, or break your calm posture. To her, that tiny crack would mean something. It would mean she matters enough to disrupt your stoicism. And if there's one thing that confuses and intrigues women about a Sigma, it's the way you can stand in a room full of noise, attention, and ego battles without budging. That detachment both attracts her and unnerves her, so she pushes to see if you'll finally show a reaction. What makes this behavior so unusual is how deliberate it can feel. She might choose moments when she knows you're watching, or even bring up another man in conversation just to see if you'll bite. The irony is, half the time she doesn't even care about the guy she's using as a prop. He's just a mirror she holds up to measure your response. If you stay grounded, if you remain as calm and unshaken as always, it frustrates her on one level, but it also fascinates her even more. The strangest part is what happens afterward. If she realizes you didn't crack, she may quickly tone it down, sometimes even acting embarrassed by her own performance. Deep down, she knows it wasn't about him. It was about you, and you didn't play along. That's when she starts seeing your composure as not just indifference, but strength. Because while most men get baited into jealousy, you refuse to hand her that kind of control. And that's exactly why, no matter how much she tries to rattle you with other men, your unshakable calm ends up making you stand out even more. Number 8, they test if you'll break character. When women sense your Sigma, one of the strangest patterns they fall into is trying to poke holes in your identity. They don't always do it with malice, but with curiosity. They'll mock you lightly, ignore your message for no reason, throw playful insults, or challenge you in ways that feel just a little out of pocket. It's not always about attraction. It's about testing the edges of your calm to see if the Sigma thing is real, or if it's just a mask you wear until someone presses the right button. Most men reveal themselves quickly under these conditions. An insult sparks defensiveness, being ignored triggers neediness, and mockery flips into irritation. That's what she's used to. But you stay the same. You don't scramble to prove yourself, you don't snap to reclaim your pride, and you don't let her little pushes drag you out of alignment. The more you don't break, the more she notices. To her, this makes you unpredictable. With other men, she knows the formula. Tease them and they'll overcompensate. Ignore them and they'll chase. Throw shade and they'll puff their chest. With you, none of those strategies work. Your refusal to break character leaves her both unsettled and intrigued, because she realizes your composure isn't situational, it's who you are. Sometimes she'll double down, raising the stakes by escalating the games. The jokes get sharper, the tests get colder, the distance gets wider. Not because she's trying to push you away, but because she wants to see if there's any point where you slip. Every failed attempt to crack your calm is another silent admission that your identity runs deeper than performance. And this is where it gets weird. The more she fails to shake you, the more she respects you, even if she doesn't admit it out loud. Because on some level she knows what she's doing is a game, and by not playing you've already won. What she thought was testing you ends up testing herself, forcing her to face the truth that not every man can be bent by her tactics. That's why this behavior stands out. It's not just flirtation or banter, it's a probe. She wants to know if the Sigma mask ever slips, and when it doesn't, she's left realizing it was never a mask in the first place. Number 9. They use humor differently around you. When women interact with a Sigma, their humor often shifts into something unusual. Instead of the playful, flirty jokes they might use with alphas, they lean into self-deprecating humor, making themselves the punchline, subtly poking fun at their own quirks, flaws, or mistakes. On the surface, it looks casual, even light-hearted, but underneath, it's a strategy. They're not trying to impress you with wit or charm in the traditional sense. They're trying to disarm you by lowering their guard in a way that feels raw and human. It's a strange dynamic, because with most men, women use humor to elevate themselves, to highlight their fun side, their quick thinking, their playful energy. Around a Sigma, they flip the script. They'll laugh at their own clumsiness, joke about their bad cooking, or call themselves out for something silly, all while glancing at you for a reaction. It's as if they sense that polished performances don't work on you, so instead, they strip it down to vulnerability disguised as comedy. This shift happens because a Sigma's presence naturally makes women more self-aware. Your calmness, your lack of need to impress, puts pressure on them to show authenticity instead of routine flirtation. Self-deprecating humor becomes their way of signaling, "See, I'm not fake with you, I can laugh at myself." And in their minds, that vulnerability creates a bridge to your respect. What's fascinating is how calculated it isn't. Most of the time, women don't even realize they're doing it. They just feel this instinct to drop the show and lean into something realer, even if it means making themselves look less polished. But the irony is, that very act of making themselves the butt of the joke often makes them more endearing. It shows you a side of them that's unguarded, unpolished, and far more genuine than the curated version most men see. The unspoken hope, of course, is that you'll notice, that you'll crack a rare smile or give a small acknowledgement that says, "I see you." To her, that little spark of recognition means she's succeeded in breaking through your wall, even for a moment. And that's why the humor shifts so drastically. It's not about being funny. It's about finding a way, any way, to reach the man who can't be easily impressed. Number 10. They test you with absurdity. When a woman senses your Sigma, the usual tests don't feel enough. She knows teasing you, ignoring you, or questioning your confidence won't get the kind of reaction she's curious about, because you don't play those games. So instead, she shifts into absurdity. Out of nowhere, she'll hit you with strange hypotheticals, bizarre what-if scenarios, or even arguments that make no logical sense. It's not because she believes what she's saying. It's because she wants to see if your composure can survive nonsense. She might say things like, "Would you still talk to me if I shave my head bald tomorrow?" Or argue passionately that pineapple absolutely belongs on pizza just to watch how you respond. Sometimes it's even more extreme, like spinning wild stories or defending positions she doesn't actually hold. On the surface, it's playful, but underneath, it's a probe. Will you get frustrated? Will you correct her? Will you try to prove her wrong? Or will you stay steady and unfazed, the way you always do? Most men get tangled quickly in these situations. They feel the need to win the conversation, to correct the absurdity, to argue back until logic is restored. But a Sigma doesn't bite. You let her run with the ridiculousness, and instead of snapping, you either play along calmly or shrug it off as if it doesn't shake you at all. That reaction is what throws her. She's not testing the point she's making. She's testing you. What makes this so strange is that even she knows it's irrational while she's doing it. Deep down, she understands the argument is silly or the story doesn't add up. But that's the point. It's a stress test for your energy, a way of throwing chaos at your stillness to see if it cracks. And when it doesn't, when you keep that detached composure in the face of sheer absurdity, it tells her more about your strength than any serious conversation ever could. Ironically, the more ridiculous she gets and the less you flinch, the more intrigued she becomes. Because in a world where most men lose their balance over the smallest tests, you stay unshaken even when logic itself leaves the room. And for her, that's proof that your calm isn't conditional. It's unbreakable. That's why absurdity becomes the weapon of choice. Not to make sense, but to see if you ever stop making sense of yourself. Number 11. They overshare deeply too fast. One of the strangest things women do when they sense your sigma is oversharing far too quickly. You haven't known her long, maybe a conversation or two, but suddenly she's telling you things that feel way too heavy for the moment. Childhood wounds, family betrayals, regrets, fears. Details she's kept locked away from friends she's known for years somehow spill out in your presence. It's not planned, it's not calculated, and half the time she's shocked at herself while it's happening. But there's something about your energy that lowers her defenses in ways she can't stop. The reason this happens is because you don't push. You're not probing for answers, fishing for personal details, or trying to pry your way into her private world. You sit in your calmness, detached but attentive, and that lack of pressure creates a vacuum. Most people are so used to others rushing to fill silence with their own stories, judgments, or advice, that when they meet someone who just lets things be, the truth comes tumbling out. In that stillness, she feels safe enough to release parts of herself she usually guards with walls. But there's also another layer to it. The sigma presence has a way of exposing contrast. When you stay so centered, people become hyper-aware of their own unrest. That awareness pushes her to unload, almost as if by confessing, she's hoping some of your steadiness will rub off on her. It's not that she consciously chooses to tell you. Her mind just cracks open because your silence feels like an invitation, even when you didn't ask for anything. The strange part is what happens after. Many times, women will feel both relieved and embarrassed. Relieved because finally someone listened without judgment or interruption. Embarrassed because they gave away too much too soon, and they know you weren't begging for it. That duality makes them even more drawn to you. On one hand, you've become a confidant by default. On the other, your neutrality makes their oversharing feel magnified. This behavior is weird because it isn't about attraction in the normal sense. It's about trust she doesn't fully understand. Something in her instincts tells her, he won't use this against me, he won't exploit it, and he won't need me to dress it up. So she speaks. And whether she regrets it later or not, the fact remains, your presence has a way of unlocking vaults people didn't even realize were waiting to be opened. Number 12. They compete against ghosts of your exes. One of the weirdest things women do when they realize your sigma is start competing with ghosts. Your exes, the women you used to know, or sometimes even women you've never actually been with but who exist in her imagination. What makes it strange is that you don't even bring these women up. You're not bragging about your past, you're not comparing, you're not holding scorecards. Yet, she quietly convinces herself that she's up against shadows from your history, and her behavior shifts as if she's trying to outshine someone who isn't even in the room. You'll notice it in subtle ways. She might go out of her way to cook you a meal, then slip in a comment like, "I bet no one's ever done this for you before." Or she'll dress up more when she's around you, not for the occasion, but to silently prove she looks better than whoever came before. Sometimes it's not even external, it's in effort. She'll try harder to impress you, to be funnier, kinder, more adventurous, as though she's auditioning against invisible competition. This doesn't come from insecurity alone, it comes from the mystery you carry. Because you don't hand out much about your past, she's left to fill in the blanks. And in those blank spaces, she paints pictures of ex-lovers who must have been extraordinary. In her mind, if you're this rare, this composed, and this detached, then the women who once had access to you must have been equally rare. That imagined standard pushes her to prove she's better, even if you're not thinking about those women at all. The irony is, she's fighting a war you're not even watching. Those ghosts don't matter to you, but to her, they become silent rivals. The thought that you've already experienced other women and walked away makes her want to be the one who leaves a deeper mark. She wants to be the one who stands out in the gallery of memories, even though you've already closed that chapter and tossed the book aside. What makes this behavior so unusual is that it's invisible to most people. To outsiders, she just looks like she's putting in effort. But you can feel the undertone, the constant comparison, the unspoken competition with people who no longer exist in your orbit. And that's the paradox of being Sigma. While you've moved on, some women will still fight shadows of your past, desperate to prove they're not just another ghost in your story. At the end of the day, these strange little behaviors aren't really about the women. They're about the ripple effect of your presence as a Sigma. You don't chase, you don't posture, you don't bend yourself to win approval, and that very refusal flips the script. It leaves people, especially women, responding in ways even they don't fully understand. They overshare without meaning to. They compete with ghosts that don't matter. They test you with absurdity, orbit you with fake excuses, or drop their polished humor for self-deprecation. Every move is a reaction to the unsettling calm you carry, the kind of calm that can't be staged, bought, or faked. What makes it extraordinary is that you never ask for any of it. You don't bait it out of them. It happens because you stand apart in a world where most men are busy proving themselves. That contrast creates tension, and tension always draws out the hidden, the unusual, and the unguarded. These weird things women do are just the byproducts of a rare gravitational pull, one that exposes truth without ever demanding it. And that's the Sigma paradox. The less you try to control, the more people bend around you. The less you reveal, the more they reveal. The less you chase, the more they circle. What they're really reacting to isn't just your presence. It's the unsettling realization that they can't quite figure you out, and maybe never will. If you've ever noticed these patterns play out, you already know this isn't about charm, it's about gravity. And if you've made it this far, make sure you hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more raw, brutally honest insights into the Sigma world. Because trust me, what we've covered here is only the beginning. If you found these insights powerful, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next deep dive into the Sigma mindset. Don't forget to like this video, drop your thoughts in the comments below, and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Every click, every share, every comment helps this community grow stronger. And trust me, the next one will go even deeper.